Alright guys, welcome to Flav Oriana's MMA show. I'm your host, Flav Oriana, brought to you by Four Corner Sports. Alright guys, so this past Saturday we had UFC Vegas 22, headlined by Derek Brunson versus Kevin Holland. Alright, so we'll go on with the main event and we'll work our way down. First card of the fight was Tai Tuivasa versus Harry Hunsucker. But we'll start with, like I said, with the main event. So the main event was Derek Brunson against Kevin Holland. Derek Brunson coming into the fight with a 3-fight win streak, and Kevin Holland is putting his 5-fight win streak on the line. First main event for Kevin Holland, you had Derek Brunson. I believe this was his third main event, if I'm not mistaken, or fourth. I can't remember exactly. I know his last main event was against Edmund Shabazian. And he ended up finishing Edmund Shabazian inside of 3 rounds. Ended up winning by TKO via punches. So, what happens this time around? So, with Kevin Holland coming into the card, right, with so much hype, so much anticipation, right, we felt like this should have been a fight that he should have been able to win, right? And we felt like Derek Brunson was just the ultimate gatekeeper, and because that's what the UFC has pretty much put him as. They put him against Edmund Shabazian. You know, Derek Brunson had beat him. I know he had fought Israel Adesanya. Israel Adesanya needed to beat Derek Brunson in order to get to a title shot later down the line against Robert Whittaker. So, if you're able to beat Derek Brunson, then you should be able to get in line for a title fight. And this was a true test for Kevin Holland. Real reason why is just because you're on a 5-fight win streak, right? You're on a 5-fight win streak. You should be able, with another win or so, you should be able to, excel from there on. And then that puts you in the top 5 in the elite category. You might have to face your Paulo Costas. You might have to face your Robert Whittaker's. Your not Adesanya because he's the champ, in that aspect. But perfect opportunity for Kevin Holland. And oh man, boy, this guy needs to work on his wrestling takedown defense, just because I understand Kevin Holland is a very light middleweight. He weighed in at 183 pounds, 2 pounds off the the 185 pound mark. 186 would have been the weight limit for middleweight. Right, because they give you a pound extra of leniency. Unless it's a championship fight, then you have to weigh in exactly at what the weight class is. But comes in and light. Brunson just looked heavier. All right, he looked heavier. And that burly body of his was able to allow him to lay on top of Kevin Holland. And Kevin Holland didn't really have much answers whatsoever. He wasn't absorbing a lot of damage or anything of that nature, but he was, losing the fight mainly because of ground control, and it's very disappointing. But Kevin Holland, he didn't, he was talking a lot. He was being very entertaining, but that's really the highlight when it comes with him. Is just the fact that he would talk a lot, during the fight. And I don't know if it was like a mental aspect. I don't know if he felt like some type of pressure. Because he was in the main event. This is his very first main event. But he did have an interview with Ariel Helwani, and he did say that he was really thinking about too much of the time. And the time was becoming, creeping up into his head. And I felt like as soon as he had said that makes so much sense. Due to the fact that, hey, if you're constantly thinking about 25 minutes, and then he says like, oh, wow, 25 minutes went by like nothing. Then, you psychologically have beaten yourself before your opponent was able to beat you. So it really makes me wonder if Kevin Holland's able to get back into a role, considering that he had lost. He had lost 4 rounds to 1 against Derek Brunson. Then it makes me question, all right, if he's able to get into a future main event, will he have this same approach? Will he be able to, rebound back and not have the same mistakes that he has had before? Well, we will have to see. But, it's unfortunate that Derek Brunson doesn't really get a lot of the shine, even after a win, because Kevin Holland is, he's an eye-grabbing talent, he knows how to draw people in. He knows how to draw people to, watching him. I mean, he was dancing his way into the octagon. He ended up doing a cartwheel right before weigh-ins. He was hopping around, dancing, around the octagon. I mean, it's entertaining. We want to see that as fans. And Derek Brunson, he's just a blue-collar fighter that's just willing to go in there, trying to get the job done, and that's it. And it just so happened to be that, it's not... Derek Brunson is just a fighter, and Kevin Holland is a fighter / entertainer. But this time, the fighter won. He used his wrestling. You ended up utilizing his takedowns. Knew that he was going to be heavier than Kevin Holland and apply that weight, and did the minimal amount of work for him to be on top of Kevin Holland in full mount or half guard, just to make sure the referee didn't pick them back up. But yeah, so that's what ended up happening. Dana White was pretty bothered. I think he says that he compared this to like a Lennox Lewis fight. Not Lennox Lewis. I can't remember the boxer's name, but the boxer ended up having like a mental breakdown where they had to stop the fight. He compared Kevin Holland to that, and I didn't see like a mental breakdown really on Kevin Holland. I just saw somebody that just, he was looking at the clock. I think I saw it in the second or third round that he was just looking at the clock while he was being held against the cage, and he was just staring at it for like a good 10 seconds. I just felt like Kevin Holland was just so distracted. His mind was distracted, waiting for the round to be over, and that was it. So I don't think it was a mental breakdown. I think it was just maybe pressure of being a 25-minute fight for somebody that's always used to being in a 15-minute fight. But half the times he finishes his fights within inside 2 rounds because this guy's a great knockout artist. But we'll see what happens. As for Derek Brunson, I love the call out that he made for Paulo Costa. That's the fight I would like to see. I would like to see how Costa bounces back after him getting knocked out by Adesanya. And as for Brunson, this might be his last title run, so he will need to get through Paulo Costa. And after that, maybe he might have to get past maybe like a Robert Whittaker or a Kelvin Gastelum, if Kelvin Gastelum does win. So it really intrigues me what's the pathway for Brunson. But for Holland, I want to see him get that rematch with Brendan Allen. Brendan Allen was the last person outside of Brunson to beat him. Brendan Allen had beaten Kevin Holland in that great UFC fight card in Boston of 2019. That's fight night with Dominic Reyes versus Chris Weidman, when Dominic Reyes knocked out Weidman inside of a minute in the first round. But yeah, good fight card that was. But yeah, moving on. Co-main event. We were supposed to have Gregor Gillespie, right, versus Brad Riddell. That fight had to get canceled because Brad Riddell had tested positive for COVID-19. Hope we get to see that fight, later down the line. Maybe in one of these pay-per-views that are going to be, that have fans. Maybe if it's the April card or the May card, I'm cool with either one of those. Or maybe you could put that on the ABC card with Marvin Vettori versus Darren Till. But anyways, co-main event. Keenan Song versus Max Griffin, all right? 2 fighters, all right? Keenan Song, reminds me of a Weili Zhang, right? With his striking and stuff like that. Going against the veteran Max Griffin. I told you guys, they really didn't know so much about Keenan Song, but Max Griffin put the lights out of Keenan Song and put him to sleep. Was very proud of Max Griffin due to the fact that he went in there. He knew that he had a co-main event slot. You got to capitalize on these opportunities, and he capitalized. He went in there guns blazing and just put this guy to sleep. He had a mission. He got it done, and now what's next? What's next for Max Griffin? I'm really wondering, do we get to see him fight Jeff Neal? I mean, he called out Jeff Neal. Not many people really call out Jeff Neal. I think, me personally, I'll give him the fight just because nobody really calls out Jeff Neal. Jeff Neal is one of those scary guys that he has, power in his right hand that could put anybody to sleep. So that's a good fight. I would love to see that happen. He put that on the Houston card. Jeff Neal is from Texas. Max Griffin, I believe he's from Texas as well. 2 Texas boys going at it at UFC 262. Would be a great time. Next, we had a fight at the women's strawweight division. It was the debut of both these ladies. It was the debut of the Contender Series winner Cheyenne Bays, versus this female fighter from Combat America, Montserrat Conejo, or Montserrat Conejo Ruiz, right? So, great fight. Love what I saw, all right? Classic striker versus grappler. And Cheyenne Bays, I mean, I felt like maybe she needs to work on how to move into transitions, right? Get out of certain positions, get out of headlocks, and move into, working out of sliding in. I think if she would have moved into possibly, her flat on her back with her being in full guard, maybe she could have applied some jiu-jitsu, but she was just stuck. I mean, Montserrat Conejo really got her good in that headlock on the floor, and she was just squeezing the life out of her neck and just punching in all 3 rounds. And she went after the same approach time in and time out. I think Conejo really needs to improve her striking. Her striking is pretty bad, but one thing that she does know how to do is she knows how to apply pressure, and she knows how to go after a takedown. And once she goes after a takedown, then it's over. All right, she's not letting you back up, and she did great work. All right, I thought Conejo was gonna make her go to sleep. Clearly, she wasn't able to. Cheyenne Bays has some spunk in her. She is tough. She is really tough, but I think that maybe the pressure of fighting somebody like Conejo, who applies a lot of pressure, who puts you against the cage and tries to take you down, right? She probably used way too much energy where she didn't have the energy to get up out of some of these takedowns or to get out of these headlocks, because these headlocks were tight and Conejo was just pounding away. At the very end of the third round, there was a little bit of a arguing, the dispute. I know some people have said that Montserrat Conejo ended up spitting at Cheyenne Bays. Cheyenne Bays ended up kicking her and stuff like that. I rewinded the video about a good 10-15 times, and no spit was thrown. Montserrat Conejo was just talking smack. She ended up calling her I'm not going to repeat it, but the P word in Spanish, if you guys want to use your imaginations, to Cheyenne Bays. She didn't take a good heart to that, which I don't really blame. So she threw the middle finger at her, and she says, I'll follow you home, and then with the B word. But it was great stuff. I would love to see these two ladies fight again. I have very high expectations for Cheyenne Bays. I think Montserrat Conejo could really be a big problem in the division with her takedowns and her pressure and her wrestling. But one thing I really do want her to do is I really want her to work on her striking. If she works with somebody like, I forgot the guy's name. He works in Colorado. He's Justin Gaethje's coach. And Kamaru Usman's coach, that striking coach. If he works with him, and she applies that same type of mentality with takedowns at the takedowns, then we really do have something with Montserrat Conejo. But as for Cheyenne Bays, I think Cheyenne Bays really needs to work on her jiu-jitsu and her transitions, getting out of submissions, and we can work on from there, because she got it all together when it comes to striking. But when it comes to on the floor, she really needs to work on how to get herself out of, messy situations. Next, we had a great fight at the bantamweight division. Adrian Yanez versus Gustavo Lopez. This was a good fight that I had circled in as my dark horse fight, because Adrian Yanez has been getting a lot of buzz since his last fight, where he had a high kick knockout in his debut in the UFC. And Gustavo Lopez is no easy out whatsoever. All right, both these guys were going at it, but Adrian Yanez, had clipped Gustavo Lopez a number of times to the point where he had gotten a couple of knockdowns. And then in the third round, in 27 seconds in, Adrian Yanez ends up dropping Gustavo Lopez face first, and that was it. It was over. All right. I love what I saw from Adrian Yanez. I think this kid might be the real deal. He might be as high as a top 5 prospect, potentially. All right, that's what I'm saying, potentially. Do I see him being a champion? I gotta see maybe a couple more fights left, but this guy has a lot of potential in him. I had spoke to Mike Heck. I ended up tweeting out to him. I said that his next fight should be Miles Johns, where he could avenge the person that had last beaten him in that Houston card. If not, give him a big jump against Marlon Chito Vera. And then lastly, we had a heavyweight battle between Tai Tuivasa versus Harry Hunsucker. Tai Tuivasa ends up knocking out Harry Hunsucker in inside of a minute as usual. This guy dominated Stefan Struve, and now he dominated Harry Hunsucker. Give this man a top 15 opponent, and let's see him do some work. Alright guys, so that is everything on Flava Oriana's MMA show. I'm your host, Flava Oriana, and thank you for tuning in. Please hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace, guys.